In this video, I am going to be answering your questions. Thank you to everybody who dropped their questions into my Instagram story. You can follow me on Instagram, footy.adventures. I will do regular posts on there on my story, especially from things that you don't necessarily see in the videos, and it will give you a little bit of information on what's coming up and when. So let's jump straight into them. I've got screenshots of some of my best ones. So firstly if you could have vlogged any game in Scottish football history, what would it be? That is from Daz_Jambo, and that is a great question. So I don't know if it would count because it's a European game, but obviously seeing a Scottish team lift the European Cup would have been sensational. So if I could have took my GoPro and my Sony camera and got in a time machine and gone back to 1967 Lisbon, that would have been pretty special. But maybe the final day where Celtic and Rangers both could have won the league, and it was like the scores were like 7-1 and stuff. I think that would have been a pretty cool one as well. But I guess maybe like a title deciding Old Firm, or a Old Firm game that was like a cup final. If not that, then maybe Aberdeen versus Real Madrid at Pittodrie. That'd have been unbelievable. Next up, the Peakies, Peaky Bandsider. So, have you ever played football for a team at any level? Yes, I grew up playing football as a kid until I was about 17 when I started working. Wasn't any good, was never going to be a professional. So eventually I just sort of gave it up when I found Strongbow and a job. Moving on, so Rangers on Tour official. Will a European Super League happen, and how will it impact the SPL? I've just filmed a video on the European Super League. That should be up right now, thumbnail on screen. If you want to check it out and check out my thoughts on that, then go ahead and watch that. How would it impact the SPL? Either Celtic and Rangers will come into it because they're going to reformat it and maybe have 60 to 80 teams. And if Celtic and Rangers were to go into it and they were to make an extra £200 million a year because they're playing games in Australia and America and India and China, then it will just drive an even bigger wedge in between Celtic Rangers and the other teams in Scotland, unfortunately. And I think it would probably be impossible for another team to ever win the Scottish Premiership. It's pretty impossible now, let alone with them two being in the Super League. Yeah, moving on. Ben's Rockin' Wrestling. A club you visited that stayed with you and you check on their scores regularly. I knew this question was coming, which is why I put this shirt here. Genuinely, the only team, like, whenever I go abroad and I see like teams I really have a connection with, I loved going to Portugal. I've been there a few times now, and I always, when I'm there, I'm always like really intrigued with what the scores are. But once I get back to the UK, I don't check them as much. I do occasionally. And like when I've been out in Germany and Holland and stuff, like you check the scores when you're out there to get some context when you're there. But even when I'm out abroad, like I always check Kelty scores. I'm a Liverpool fan, but yeah, even when I'm home away, I'll always check the Kelty scores. They've always stayed with me, always so good with me during COVID. I've got a couple of their shirts now. Seen them a few times this season, saw them even more the last couple of seasons as well. So yeah, the one team that I check the scores of through this channel, who I've like found out about, Kelty Hearts. Love them. Anyway, moving on. What made you want to start a YouTube channel? That's from Oliver. What made me want to start a YouTube channel? I wasn't very happy in my old job. It wasn't necessarily the worst job in the world. I just wasn't happy in my sort of office job. I had a okay office job that I was happier in, and then I moved to one, and within 15 minutes of my new job I was like, oh god, I've made a mistake here. I sort of went to a company that wasn't quite as good as my old one. Yeah, just wasn't very happy in my office job basically, so I wanted to do something else, and lo and behold, here we are 3 and a bit years later, chatting to you guys. So a huge thank you for all the support. I couldn't do it without you. Do you find fans welcoming to grounds across Scotland as some don't like the YouTubers at games? That is from ADAFC5194. Thank you very much, mate. Legend, Aberdeen fan. Yeah, do YouTubers get stick at games? Sometimes, yeah, they do. To be honest, 99%, more than that even, of my interactions have been overwhelmingly positive. Again, I thank you guys. The support I get is amazing. There's been 1 or 2 negative things that I don't need to go into here. I'm not a clickbaity kind of guy. I wouldn't sensationalize a title for no reason. I certainly could have done at 1 or 2 games that maybe you're aware of if you've sort of been watching the channel for a long time, but I didn't want to do that. That's not what I'm about. I'm not about fake drama. I do understand why YouTubers get a bad rep sometimes. I do feel like YouTube can be very... you can ham it up a little bit too much, and I certainly thought, like I did that in the early stages. The hardest thing about YouTube is like being yourself on camera. it's very hard to sort of even just like talk the way you talk normally in front of a camera. It's very sort of off-putting when you're trying to look into a camera and think about what you got to say and how you're going to say it. But I used to think like I had to put on a show to be at a game and sing all the songs and stuff like that. But the more comfortable I've got with like the vlogs I know I want to film, the more I've realised that the videos actually aren't necessarily about me when I go to games. It's about like the passion of the club and the fans like the ones who are actually there week in, week out. So yeah, I can understand why YouTubers can get stick at games. However, yeah, it's been overwhelmingly positive, thankfully. Nathy Q19, will you cover more League of Ireland games in the future? Yes, I certainly will. I love the fact that the League of Ireland is in the summer. I reckon for the foreseeable future, for as long as I'm doing YouTube, whenever the summer rolls around, I'll always do a trip or two to Ireland. Absolutely love that the football's on there in the summer. I only just scratched the surface last time I was there. I think I was there for about 2 weeks in total, but I absolutely loved it. The videos did amazing. You guys were fantastic. The people out in Ireland, loads more teams for me to cover. So yeah, 100%, I will certainly be doing more Irish videos. Here we go. So Grant Laird 7. Best atmosphere you've been to, 3 categories: big matches, lower league and non-league. Oof, that's a good question. I always say, obviously, like a European semi-final in Scotland, regardless of who the team would be sensational. So Rangers v Red Bull Leipzig, one of the best games I've ever been to. Liverpool v Dortmund as well is one that I always say about. That was pre-YouTube, so you guys wouldn't see any footage from it from me. It's years before I even thought about starting a YouTube channel. But yeah, I think for YouTube, probably Rangers Leipzig is probably the best I've been to. Lower league. Best lower league atmosphere. There's been a few good ones. I suppose like any of the trophy days that I went to last season, Kelty Hearts. Actually Sunderland, I would say. They were League One when I went to see them, 40,000 people there for that. Or actually, I've got to say, Falkirk, Dunfermline, that derby, that's lower league and that was sensational. And then non-league, the one that springs to mind, Auchinleck Talbot in the Cups, that was so good. Darvel in the Cup as well against Aberdeen, that was a great atmosphere. And an English non-leaguer is Blythe Spartans. There you go, that's got a great atmosphere too. I know you said 3... I suppose you said 3 categories, but I've given you a sort of range of games within that. How amazing was your experience in Prague watching Sparta? That's from Winky Fuchs. Yes, I met Winky Fuchs there. That was when I maybe had like 2,000 subs. We've come a very, very long way since I went to Sparta, and I would love to go back. When people ask me, what is the best atmosphere you've seen abroad, I always say Sparta Prague. I know there was obviously some controversy between the Prague teams and like Rangers and Celtic in the like not so far future past, but when I went there, all the people were amazing with me, and I really enjoy Prague. Prague is a really, really cool city, and actually when I went there, I went for 2 games, and the atmosphere was great at both. And I would recommend you go there and watch some football in the Czech Republic. It's a really, really cool country. Francisco A. David, best scran. I would have to say Kill Winning Rangers. They do a haggis and sausage meat toasty at their games, and it is so unique and so delicious. You can't get that anywhere else. I've not seen it anywhere else. Anyway, moving on. Reese, what do you see in Scottish football that isn't in English football? Not as much money, I suppose, because of that. A little bit less... Is corruption the right word? I'm not sure if that's 100% the right word, but you can relate to Scottish football a lot more. The players aren't getting paid so much that they're like superstars. Even the top guys, like you can still relate to them a little bit. And even like going down the lower leagues, these are guys that are playing football for as much as like the average man is getting paid. Man or woman obviously is getting paid, and I don't think that there is as such as like things like Jack Grealish, 100 million quid to score a few goals, and the whole amount of money Chelsea have spent. It's just so unrelatable to like the normal person going to football matches. So yeah, I think Scotland still has a lot more humble roots, and that is what I really like about it. It's one of the best things about Scottish football in my opinion. Kieran Hunter.65 has asked, what do you feel you personally get out of going to non-league games in Scotland? The sense of community and the great feel you get coming out of a non-league game after the match is just amazing. Like you walk away with a big smile on your face. Not saying that you don't do that in the bigger games, but with all the Super League stuff, with all the Chelsea, the Man City, it's just becoming way too crazy and getting way too much. And when you go to like grassroots football and you see how football sort of should be, community and people coming together and volunteers working on the pitch, doing the lines and taking frost covers off and setting out the kit for the players and stuff, like it's really a part of something that you get when you're there. When you go to like bigger football stadiums, you're more seen, in my opinion, by the people who own the clubs as a customer, whereas when you go to a non-league club, you're more seen as a supporter and someone who genuinely does feel important. I think that the big clubs couldn't really give a about you, really. They'd get rid of you in an instant just to get someone else in who would spend money at their club, whereas I feel like with smaller community clubs, they care about everybody there, they know everybody there, they know people by name. You can hear what the linesman's saying to the players, you can hear what the referee's saying, you can give the players a bit of stick during the game, and I feel like there's a much more togetherness feeling, a lot more feeling of community and stuff like that, which I think is slowly evaporating from the game, especially at the top end. Thank you so much for watching this video. I did, like I said earlier, release a Super League video just recently, so filmed a couple of videos indoors here. I'm off to England in a couple of days and coming back up to Scotland, and then I've got a European trip. When is it? I'm looking at my dates just now, my whiteboard. In about a week's time, I go to... was about to say the country there. I don't want to say who it is. Yeah, I'm going somewhere very, very soon. But yeah, you won't want to miss out. So please, please do subscribe. Thank you to everyone who gave me their questions. There was even more that I couldn't answer, so I might do more Q&As in the future. If you'd like to see that, drop it in the comments section below. Do remember to follow me on Instagram as well to get involved with more questions, Q&As, polls, that kind of stuff that I do regularly post on my stories. Thank you very much, and goodbye.